released to you. Okay, so a common ploy from, again, a lot of our competitors, especially if you look online, is, they'll entice you with what appears to be a lower interest rate, perhaps than even what I can offer. What they're not disclosing to you is they're charging you interest on the entire balance of the loan from day one. So why is this important? Well, obviously, if you've got a massive construction reserve, right? You've got, I don't know what massive is to you guys, but just say it's a $100,000 renovation. You're getting charged on that $100,000, even if it's at a lower interest rate than what I can charge you from day one. But you haven't gotten the benefit of it yet, because draws work in reimbursement style, which we can get into in a second. With us, we charge what's called simple interest. It's just on the money that's been released to the borrower. So if at closing, we're releasing, what we would call the acquisition portion of the loan, and then you're moving on to a construction portion, as we're releasing the construction funds to you, sure, we're going to be charging you interest on the money once it's been released to you. But until that point, we're not. So Dutch interest versus simple interest is a major, major difference between us and, again, a lot of our local competitors. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer some now, but I can get into kind of the meat and potatoes if you want. It's up to you.
No, go ahead. We're just listening.
Okay. So main thing, we get deals, pitched to us all day long. They come in, honestly, via the website, which is restorationcapital.com. They come in via phone, text, email, everything. And what I mean by that is, once people generally start working with us, they're not going onto a website and filling out an application anymore. It's more or less, here's what I got, can you help type situation. But what we look for, especially from a new client, number one is experience. I call it the 3 E's, if you will: experience, equity, and the exit strategy. So experience, obviously, who are we dealing with? Is it somebody that has done this, a dozen times, or is it somebody that's just getting going? If there's somebody that's just getting going, never flipped a property, do they have, number one, some capital behind them? Number two, do they seem as though they can actually get something done? Do they have a plan in place? So experience is important. It's not tremendously important for us. But the folks, and I can actually talk intelligently about a lot of our competitors because I know how they operate. For the folks who are selling their paper, it's very, very important. You have to have, for every program, an absolute minimum of 1 flip in the last 24 months, preferably more than that. For like the top level programs, and what I mean by top level is the higher leverage programs, the higher loan to value programs, you need a minimum of 5 flips normally. So experience becomes more important for those type of lenders. For us, we look at it just to kind of get a better feeling of who we're working with. And it usually will affect the deal a little bit as to how we're going to structure it. And what I mean by that is, if you're just getting started, you're kind of on your own, you don't have a network maybe behind you to help out in the event something goes wrong, we're probably going to cut the loan to value ratio a little bit. And, somebody doesn't know what that means, I'm happy to explain, but we're just not going to lend maybe as much as we would to somebody who has a tremendous amount of experience. I mean, it's just common sense. Equity is, equity is equity. We're looking for equity in the deal. So what I mean by that is I'm never going to lend somebody 100% of their acquisition price, 100% of renovation, because that's not a loan. It's a joint venture at that point. The borrower, especially right now in this market, and again, we tell it how it is and we don't beat around the bush. You have to have some skin in the game. You have to have some capital available toward the transaction. Sorry, there's a plane going overhead. If that's bugging you, I'm sorry. So generally speaking, what I'm telling people right now in this kind of ongoing global pandemic market, if you will, and market, not necessarily real estate, but the credit markets that back us, we're looking usually for a minimum of 20% down. Even if the borrower has incredible credit, incredible experience, it is very, very tough for us to get a deal done in this market with less than 20% down. That is mainly because we're not selling our notes. So we're looking for safety. None of us really know what's going to happen with this market, but we all really feel like this region in general is quite resilient to, market change and market corrections. Job market, defense, Amazon, all of the above, it doesn't hurt us, obviously, but we still want to see some skin in the game from the borrower. If it's a higher risk deal, if it's a higher, if it's a less stable market, maybe like Baltimore, for example, versus, I don't know, Falls Church, the loan to value ratios would probably come down a little bit, meaning we'd look for more from the borrower. But we always, at a very, very minimum, we want a 30% buffer from property value from start to finish. So what I mean by that is at acquisition, our loan to value ratio, it's never going to be over 70%, no matter who you are. If the property, as the property is getting renovated, same thing. We want to keep that 30% cushion. So we'll release construction draws to the point where we feel like we're back at a 70% value of the current value as it's being constructed. So experience, equity, and then exit strategy. What I mean by exit is, what's the plan? What are you going to do? How are we exiting from the loan? Generally speaking, our loans are for 12 months. Some of our borrowers only take 6-month loans. Some of them, they're 2 or 3 day loans because they've got an exit already lined up. Maybe they just have to close on something to flip the contract. Well, flip the property, not the contract, obviously. But 9 times out of 10, though, they're 12-month loans, right? So are you, as the borrower, going to be able to execute what you've set out to do within the next 12 months? Now, that being said, certainly we have deals that go over 12 months. All of our notes have extension terms kind of built into them, provisions that allow for it. But, there needs to be a reason why. If it's heavy construction, that's one reason. If it's, I don't know, a condo conversion in DC and you're having a tough time getting your docs in order at the end with an attorney, that's another reason. But experience, equity, exit, those are the things we kind of want to get to, wrap our minds around pretty quickly early on in the process. As far as the submission of a loan, advice I could give, the folks that are on this call, just be prepared. It is, I can't tell you how annoying it is when a client literally calls, well, not even a client, a potential client maybe, because clients know how we operate and they don't usually beat around the bush, and they really don't even know what it is they're looking for, right? They don't know what loan they want. They don't have any idea what kind of capital they're working with internally. So the more you can disclose to a lender, especially a lender that's lending their own capital, the better. The more I know about you, the better I can structure a deal, the better likelihood of success you're going to have. Every deal we put together, we want the borrower to succeed, and we want them to come back to us over and over and over again. And we don't ever want them to competitor. We want that level of service. And honestly, we do a really good job of putting deals together and making sure that they're going to be successful from day one, because you can count the foreclosures that this company has had in 12 years on less than one hand. We don't ever want a deal to go bad. We're not in what's called the loan to own business, right? We want you to come back to us. We want you to succeed and not ever think twice about the decision you made. Unfortunately, there's definitely lenders out there that are not in the same category as us and kind of give all of us a bad name. So you just need to be mindful of that. When you're talking to folks, it's funny, I haven't said this in a long time, but I feel like it's almost warranted now to say it. If you're interviewing a lender, ask them straight up, how many foreclosures have you had? How many do you have going on right now? How many loans in default do you have right now? And see what they answer. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of lenders that have 30, 40 going on at a time, which is insane if you think about it. It's nuts. Yeah. But that just goes to show you they're more of a volume shop. All they do is care about putting out the note, selling the note immediately, getting the points, and moving on to the next deal. And they don't really care about you as a client. So kind of important distinction. So as far as the process goes, again, be prepared, and here's what you need to be prepared with. Number one, obviously, we need an address. You'd be surprised how many people call or get in contact with us and they don't have an address. They don't realize that a hard money lender is looking at an individual deal. They're not looking at underwriting you as a borrower for a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan. They're looking at, are you able to execute a plan, renovate the property, and resell the property within a certain period of time? That's all they care about. So have your plan in place, have your scope and budget ready when you call. If you are within even $10,000-$15,000 of what you think the renovation costs are going to be, that's probably good enough to start talking. But if you call up and you have no clue what it's going to cost to renovate a property, I can't help you because I don't know either. I haven't seen the property and I haven't been inside of it. So generally, when people are usually calling us, they've already got something under contract. They've got their scope of work. They've got their renovation budget in place. Pictures are very, very helpful. So us as a company and our underwriters can see what the property looks like right now in its current condition. And that's really it. If you've got comps helps a little bit, but truth be told, for the most part, we're pulling our own comps anyway and double checking. If you're buying in the name of an entity, so an LLC or a corporation, have your entity formation docs ready to go, right? If it's an LLC, you need your operating agreement, you need your articles of organization, and you need an EIN, your federal tax ID, those three things. If the LLC is more than a year old, it's nice if you can have what's called a certificate of fact. It's like a good standing certificate with, the jurisdiction. It's Virginia SEC, if it's Maryland SStat, just so the lender knows that the entity is still in good standing and it's not like a thing that pops up at the last second right before closing. That's it, really. I mean, for the presentation, essentially, of a deal, right? Your plan, obviously the address, plan, scope, budget, pictures. If you've got comps. As far as what we can offer and how we operate, we really have three different products that are geared toward folks who are flipping properties. We also have a 30-year fixed rental product that's designed for people who are buying and holding, and the property doesn't need renovations, but completely different product. I don't necessarily need to talk about that or want to talk about that now. I don't think that's what the purpose of this is.
Well,
for the three products,
down those three, well, we'd love to hear about them because there's a lot of, like, our group has a lot of just like people who work full-time jobs and are actively looking for rentals and building their rental businesses and doing the BRRRR strategy and things like that. So, anything you can teach us about, we would love to hear.
So I was planning on talking about for the fix and flip side. The rental side, I'll be honest, I own the company, but I'm not an expert on it, and it just got released about 2 weeks ago. So I have a whole other division that handles that for us. I could give you a cursory overview, which is it is not designed for somebody who has never had a rental before. It's designed for somebody who has at least had one rental in the last, I think it's 2 to 3 years. Okay. Minimum FICO of 680.
Yep.
And I think the max LTV on it is 75%, I believe. The interest rates right now start at 5.75, and there's various adjustments, but most of the loans are pricing out under 6%. It is literally a product designed by investors for investors. So what I mean by that is there's no income verification, there's no asset verification, no tax returns. It is literally, we look at the experience that the borrower has as a landlord. We look at these debt to income ratio. So, we need to know what insurance and taxes are going to cost, obviously, and then what the market rent is in that area. But it's 75% product. It's, certainly a higher interest rate than what you could get at a bank if you're well qualified for it. It is designed for people who are buying in the name of LLCs and have It's literally, there's no limit to the amount of capital you can borrow off the program. So, you know, Freddie and Fannie, you're limited to 10. This, you can go, you know, as much as you need.
Okay.
What were you gonna ask?
Yeah, and so you said typically you want 20 to 25% down.
No, on that program it's a max LTV of 75, but if you're buying it very well, it goes off, you know, it goes off the value of the property. So
Okay.
you know, it could be less than 25% down is what it boils down to.
Just depends on how good of a deal we're getting, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is a national program. It's throughout the country. Pear Street had a program to it, fairly similar to it, but it evaporated back in March. I do think it's going to come back to the table. And full disclosure, every lender in this region who offers a 30-year product, and when I say lender, I'm talking about a hard money lender, not a bank.
Yeah.
Every one of those lenders is not holding that paper. Like I could never hold paper at, you know, sub 6%. It's impossible. So all of those notes are getting originated and sometimes even table funded, meaning by the actual note holder, or we're originating it with our own money and then immediately selling those notes. But it's a fixed rate note. You could do 10, 15, 20, 30-year amortizations on them. They do have a sliding 3-year prepayment penalty. So they put that in there for a specific reason. They do not want folks who are basically trying to use a loan like this to flip a property. It is designed to be held because it's getting bundled together and sold more like you would see on, you know, a mortgage-backed security type paper.
Got it.
So, you know, if you want to get into the rental program more, I would probably say I'd want to get one of my guys who are an expert on it, not me. That's really almost the extent of what I know on it. I try to stay away from that side of the business.
You know, we'd love to learn more about it because, I mean, we've got about 300 different students working with us here. This is not even a piece of who, you know, it's Friday night. I don't know where everyone's at, but we would love to learn more about that. And I'm glad that you actually mentioned it. So.
Okay. Well, we can certainly set that up for another time. As far as the fix and flips go, like I said, we have 3 different products. I don't want to get too I don't know, detailed on any of them, but the very first loan is a loan toward acquisition and nothing else. Meaning we're not doing anything with the renovations. We are simply giving you money toward the acquisition of the property. So you're bringing a down payment and then you're doing the renovations on your own. That is usually, you know, the typical borrower there is very well capitalized, doesn't want a lender to get involved with any of the renovation process. They just need help buying the property, and usually a fairly experienced client. But, you know, not always. Sometimes it's somebody who's just got a ton of cash and whatever. Second product is what we call a construction reimbursement reserve. So that's very similar to the first product in that we're giving you some capital immediately at closing toward the acquisition. But then you're doing all the renovations on your own, and we are reimbursing you at the tail end, meaning once the renovations are complete and the property has been listed for sale. Those are the 2 caveats. Renovations done, property on the market. You let us know. We literally check the listing. We don't even send an inspector to check the work, and we're reimbursing you for the construction costs. So that's called a construction reimbursement reserve. It's our number 1 product, and I'll tell you why. It's for people who generally don't have massive, you know, construction budgets, right? They're just getting, I don't know, maybe a minor to a moderate renovation done, nothing major, no pop tops, no additions, or, you know, putting on a, I don't know, a massive deck or anything like that. But the borrower at the tail end, of course, is able to free up their capital and pull out the cash that they've invested essentially in the product, you know, the product that they've produced, the property that they've renovated. So it almost acts like a cash out refinance without having to go and do a full blown cash out refinance and pay, you know, recordation taxes and everything again. So the clients love it, and there's no interest charged on that reserve until it gets released to you. So as long as the budget is over $20,000, which honestly anything underneath that is so cosmetic, it's almost doesn't make a difference. It works very, very well. Number one product. The third product is a very typical hard money loan with construction draws. So again, we're giving you really the same amount of money at acquisition as we would in number one and two, but then we're taking your, your scope of work, your renovation budget, and breaking it down into draws. So you're sitting down with your contractor, or you're giving us more or less like a line item budget, what every piece of the renovation is going to cost. And honestly, you call, email, text, and say, hey, I'm ready for some money. You give us 24 hours notice. We get somebody out to the property. They're checking out the work. They're not looking at receipts. They're not counting pennies. It's literally, we're taking what you gave us. The site inspector is bringing it there, and they're check marking what's been done and what hasn't been done, and then authorizing a release for everything that has been done. That whole process, each draw from start to finish, takes approximately 2 to 3 days. So basically, you're calling us, we're scheduling the inspection for whatever day you tell us. As long as it's at least a day out, guaranteed we can get somebody there. But same day, it's not that easy. But following day, easy. That night, we get pictures from the inspector. The next morning, we get a report, and we process an ACH payment to your account. Back to how I kind of started this whole conversation, I cannot stress enough how big of a difference that is between us and, again, the majority of our competitors. The minute the note gets sold to somebody else, they're having to hire a land gorilla or, somebody to go through and literally start counting receipts. And you talk about a slow, painful draw process, and that's what you get. With us, it's about as streamlined as streamlined gets.
Do you guys charge for your draw, for your inspections?
Good question. Yeah. So depending on where the property is, it ranges from $150 to high end is $200. Normally it's $150 to $175. If it's really rural or just super far away, something like that, it could be as high as $200 per draw.
Yeah, got it.
But that's it. I mean, it gets pushed to your account the very next day via, like I said, an ACH payments. So there's no charge to the client for that. It's, with a wire, obviously most people have incoming wire fees. So ACH, it's not quite as quick, but it's, 24 hours later, it's in your account. That's really it. I mean, I can get as detailed as you want or keep it cursory, but I'm happy to open it up for Q&A too.
Yeah. Can you cover, so when you say like, hey, we'll cover 75% of the LTV, can you explain what that means to everyone?
So loan to value ratio is obviously the percentage of the loan versus the value of the property, right? So the property was worth $100,000. Most lenders, most guys who do what I do would not be in that property for more than $70,000. Some, again, riskier areas or higher volatility areas could be $65,000. Might only go to 65%. Like in Baltimore, for instance, right now, number one, we don't love Baltimore. We never really have. I mean, I've got clients who own 100 plus units in Baltimore and love it, but it takes a very, very dedicated borrower and experienced borrower with boots on the ground to be successful in Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not possible. I know it is possible. I've flipped properties in Baltimore and done well, but it's a pain in the butt. So we as a company try to stay out of Baltimore. If we have a loan and we're with there, it's probably like a 50-55% LTV versus, Falls Church or Arlington or Ballston or McLean or Great Falls or pretty much anywhere in Northern Virginia and Montgomery counties and, PG County even at this point has been gangbusters for years. We view that as a much more stable market where we're comfortable pressing LTVs a little bit and lending a little more to the average client.
Awesome. And what are those extension fees like? Like, let's say, you got a rehab, a bigger deal, and you're kind of like right on the edge, but it's that 12-month mark. What does that look like as far as communicating with you and just letting what is the cost for an extension, basically?
Well, good question. Let's back up for a second. If the client is disclosing to us up front that they think it's going to take more than 12 months, I probably wouldn't do a 12-month loan. I'd probably do a 15 or an 18-month loan and give them enough time, to be successful. That's the first thing. I think as a company, as far as I know too, from what, I know about most of my competitors, I think we have some of the most, what's the word, generous extension terms out there. So let me back up. Years ago, if the loan went beyond maturity date, we would generally charge the exact same fee that we charged upfront again, the 12-month mark. What ended up happening, so say it was priced out at like a 2.5 point or 3-point deal, we would then charge it again at the 12-month mark. What ended up happening, and I'm happy it happened, but we had some clients that said, "Hey, I only need like another 2 weeks. Seriously, can you cut me a break?" And what we ended up doing was going back to our investors, the people that give us capital, and saying, "Hey, we kind of agree with our clients here. It's not their fault if I don't know, a settlement gets delayed. It's under contract, it's supposed to settle within the 12 months, and then it gets pushed back. Can we cut them a break?" What we ended up changing the model to, and this is probably 7 or 8 years ago at this point, we charge a 1-point extension fee, and it buys you an additional 2 months. So generally speaking, that works pretty well for people, because at that point, and I, just to be completely frank, if it's taking you more than 12 months to flip a normal property, you're really doing something wrong, especially in this market.
Yeah.
So that seems to work quite well, that 1 point for 2 months. Every once in a while, we can negotiate it to, 1 point for 3 months or 1 point for 6 months even. But that kind of comes after the fact, and we look at track record. Has the borrower made on-time payments? Have they been easy to work with, or is it literally us having to call every month to look for a mortgage payment? That's kind of where I was going with. If you've got a local lender who's holding their own, notes in-house and servicing them, that's where a big difference comes into play.
Do your loans go to 24 months ever?
We do. Yeah, we've done a few for 2 years, right from the start, and that's generally, that's usually like somebody who's buying something that needs some work, but then they're trying to either stabilize it or, I don't know, Airbnb it, something like that, which obviously now is a struggle in this market. But before they have enough time to go out and refinance it into long-term debt. Or maybe it could be somebody who's trying to get their credit improved, and they own an asset, free and clear, that they're trying to take some cash out of, clean up their revolving debt, and get a better credit score so that they can go back to a bank and get a lower interest rate. The main thing that I failed to mention probably from a very early point, and it's surprising how many people don't realize this. Hard money lenders cannot make loans against owner-occupied property. Cannot be a primary residence.
Yeah. And
so many people call us and email and find us on Google or whatever. I didn't even know we were on Google, to be honest. That are looking for us to bail them out of a situation that they put themselves in their primary, and that is not what a hard money lender does. A hard money lender is strictly lending against investment real estate for business purposes. Cannot say that enough. And if you ever find a lender who's not a bank and who's willing to do that, get the loan from them and then sue them, because you'll probably get your principal wiped out. Not a good idea for the lender, but you win in court is my point. I mean, they're doing something illegal. So.
Okay, we've got some hands raised. I think Mike had his hand raised first, Mike Nagash. And then if he doesn't come out, then Damien. Come on out, guys. Mike, what's up?
Yeah, thank you, Omer. Brian, I have two questions. The first one is, Do you guys do on commercial properties like multifamily as well?
So the rental program goes up to 4 units, and that's the max. There's no exception to it right now. I think in time that might loosen up to provide for more units. As far as the fix and flip stuff goes, here's what I would tell you. Generally speaking, no. If and when you become a client and you've proven yourself and we've kind of seen a track record, the sky's the limit with us as a company, right? And what I mean by that is, I've done land assemblages for commercial development. I've done, you name it, I've pretty much done it. And the way I do that is I don't necessarily fund it in restoration capital, but I will call some of our high net worth investors who have capital with us, some of the capital that we're lending, obviously, and say, hey, this gentleman's got a deal that makes a lot of sense, doesn't fit in our box. In fact, we got one today in West Virginia, of all places. I mean, this guy he bought it 2015. It's like 370 acres of land. He bought it for $4.5 or $5 million, all cash, right? Mm-hmm. He lives in California. They just discovered that the piece of property actually has a spring, a spring on it that's pushing out about 10 million gallons a day. So he's working a deal right now with Coca-Cola. I mean, this is about as commercial as it gets, obviously, right? But yeah. he needs $2.5 million quickly, and he's willing to do everything that we want him to do. And honestly, the value of the property without the spring on it is probably about 7.6. So is that a deal that I'm interested in? Yeah. 33% LTV. So what am I going to do over the weekend? I unfortunately am going to work on it and put some investors together and try to do a deal outside of restoration capital and, make this guy some money. So to answer your question, the short answer is no. The long answer is once we get to know you, or if the deal makes a lot of sense, yes, it's possible.
Yeah, and the second question I have is: do you guys, so long as it is within your investment mandate and within that 70-75% sweet spot, would you guys do like a subordinated debt, like say, like in the example you gave me, like a mezzanine debt or a AB structure or some type of subordinated debt?
I'm not sure. You broke up a little bit. I'm not sure I heard the whole question. You're saying, do we allow subordinate debt?
No, I mean, like, do you guys, would you guys be interested, like, being like a mezz lender or like in a subordinated position, say, like, like if it is a big deal and if you can't hold more than, say, $1 million, if you can't lend more than $1 million, would you be willing to be a subordinated lender, like, say, for a bank or something like that, like a mezz lender?
Yeah, no. The short answer is no. Again, I mean, there's always situations that pop up that we're willing to look at least, but restoration capital only does first deeds of trust. I have another company called Green and Gold Properties, which does do second trusts occasionally, but I mean, the scenario you presented, I don't know any private guys who want to be behind, $500,000, let alone $1 million. The deal has to make a lot of sense. The borrower would have to be very, very strong, high credit, high net worth. Because I've been wiped out on seconds before, and it's not a pleasant experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Damien?
Yeah, my question was, I know you guys typically do a 12-month loan. What if we have a second, wave of this COVID and they put everything on pause like it was for the first 2 months? And, I guess you're in limbo, or you're in construction crews in limbo. How do you guys operate under conditions like that?
It's a good question. So, this whole thing presented us, and I honestly, I've been doing this long enough that I thought I had seen everything. The first company I formed was 2005, and we went through the recession, right? And needless to say, we took it on the chin a couple times during the recession, but we've never experienced anything quite like this. So to answer your question, what we did for all the loans that we had in our portfolio was waived all the late fees. We gave people basically an extra 30 days to make any mortgage payments. We didn't have a whole lot of people complaining about a lack of being able to get permits and things like that. It happened occasionally. And same thing with the contractors. And we had one or two guys that complained that, they couldn't get contractors to come in the property. And we just kind of worked out, solutions with them individually. But for the most part, it wasn't really that big of an issue. But I kind of go back to what I said earlier. We're not in the loan to own business. I don't want your property. I have enough property. I have enough things on my plate. I've got enough other businesses that I run. And I just want you guys to be successful. I want you to be happy. I want you to come back, and I want you to tell all your friends. So, I'm going to do what I can to make it as comfortable as possible. And this happened probably a dozen times or so in the past few months. Things were definitely going over maturity dates, without a doubt, because there was a point, obviously, when people weren't buying anything for, a month and a half or so because they couldn't even get in properties. But, when those things were going past maturity, that was a pretty simple phone call. The answer was, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And waiving extension fees, waiving any increased interest, as long as the borrower is not playing games.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If the borrower is playing games with us, it's a different story. And we know how to read through those, those lines pretty quickly and determine that. But if it's not, if it's not a BS reason and there is, validity behind what the client is saying, we're going to bend over backwards to make the client happy and take care of them. It's just that simple. It's how we operate.
Cool. Thank you.
John had a question. What's up, buddy? Come on out.
Okay, I got a couple questions. So on the, I know you were saying that you work on a 75%, a 75%
75% LTV.
75% LTV. So do you do anything towards the renovation costs as well, or just the purchase price?
Yeah. So let's clarify a couple things. And 75% is really just for the rental program. The fix and flips really cap out at 70. If you're a super, super strong client, incredible credit, and done a lot of volume with us, yes, can that be pushed higher? It can. But generally it's 70%. And then remember I talked about those three different products, just the loan toward acquisition, construction reimbursement reserve, and construction draws. So products 2 and 3, construction reimbursement reserve, construction draws, obviously that's renovation money. So yes, to answer your question, we can give 100% of renovation money. That's not a problem. Okay. It really comes down to the issue for most clients is being able to have enough of a down payment to get us comfortable. So what you're seeing, and again, I'm being very frank and as open and transparent as I possibly can. What you're seeing right now in this market is there's so little inventory and there's so much demand for finding a good deal that's not a good deal. Most of the time people grab it, right? It's tough right now to find good deals. So the purchase prices, the acquisition prices, the total purchase price inclusive of the massive assignment fee that you're being forced to pay because these wholesalers are crushing it right now. That's your total purchase price. And generally speaking, what we're seeing a lot of the time right now is it's too high, right? Which means that borrower now has to put down more to make us comfortable, to keep us at the LTV that we really feel the property's currently at. And I'm putting my finger up saying currently for a reason. The client's going to go in and create value, right? If you guys are doing your job right and renovating the property and opening it up and making it beautiful, you're going to get your ARV. You're going to get your after renovation value that you're hoping to get and hopefully that you've comped out. Where the issue is until you've done that, it's a higher level of risk for us as a lender, and every lender right now. We're also one of the few lenders in the region that we don't back out assignment fees. So we do a ton of business with really, the big three in this area. I can't even tell you, like, a ton of business. And we're wrapping those assignment fees into the total purchase price, versus, again, if it's a lender that's selling their paper, they're not allowed to do that. It's an underwriting no. So that's more cash out of the client's pocket, and that's what's killing a lot of deals right now.
Yeah,
So,
like market pro deals. We get a lot of these market pro deals, and there's not enough skin in the game. They're a bigger wholesaler that we've got a relationship with, and
So,
the deals don't make sense.
okay. Appreciate that. One more question. So I know you said on the rental program, that one's a nationwide program, but on the one for the fix and flip, are you only in like just the DMV basically?
yeah, Virginia, Maryland, DC. I've done a couple in Pennsylvania, a couple in North Carolina. I really try to stick to like a 2-hour drive is what I like. Will we ever go past that? Yeah, it's possible, but it is what it is. We are signed up with like the Peer Streets of the world. At least we were before all this, for the purpose of doing deals outside of the DMV. And we still are up with them. So, I mean, if you do have something outside of it, I'm happy to look at it, but it won't be as clean as the product I just described, because that product requires appraisals. It requires verifying your experience. There's a little more hand-holding involved in getting that through underwriting, so to speak. If it's something that's completely in-house, again, Virginia, Maryland, DC, I mean, I got a deal on Wednesday that I closed today at 4:00. I mean, that's how quickly we can move. I can get a deal closed in 1 or 2 days if I have to. If it's put together and, everything is presented to us and I can get eyes on it quickly, I have the ability to move that quickly for people. Once you're selling notes, it's a whole different story. So
Yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
the stronger your deal, or the deeper discount that you get your deal at, the less you're going to have to put down.
Correct.
Cool. Man, this has been good, guys. Great questions. Keep them coming. Anyone else? We want to make this as interactive as possible while we have Brian.
Anything else?
I got another question for you. As far as miscellaneous fees, are there any miscellaneous fees as well?
Of course. There's always miscellaneous fees. Yeah. So here's how we operate. Good question. Maybe I should have gotten into that, but I mean, I was trying to keep it a little more broad, and talking about lenders in general. I don't know how everyone operates. I can tell you how we operate. I'll tell you all the fees right now. You can write them down and quote me if you want. So the only fee that we charge upfront is a commitment fee. So once the deal's been presented, the next step is we analyze it. We call it like an in-house analysis period, if you will. That generally takes a few hours to a day. At that point in time, either myself or somebody else is getting back in touch with you as a client saying, hey, this is our max loan amount at acquisition. This is the max we can lend total, inclusive of renovation costs, construction costs, okay? So those are two numbers that we give to you. We then try to get, if we don't already have it, a little more of a background on you, what you're looking for, what's going to work. Do you need renovation money? If you do you need it throughout the process and draws? You just need it on the back end? How much capital are you working with? What's your experience level? All that. Once we kind of get through that phase, the next phase is a commitment phase. So that's not a pre-approval letter. That is the real deal. It's 6-7 pages long. It goes through, obviously, us as a lender. Here's what we're charging. Here's every fee that you're going to see on the HUD. Here's what we expect of you as a client. This is the settlement date, and we're sticking to that date, or sooner. So what I mean by that is, if we tell you, you tell us your closing date, I'm putting the closing date in writing, and I'm saying we're going to meet that closing date. I'm not pushing the closing date back because I'm lending my own capital. Versus, again, 90% of our competitors, that's a game they play.
Yeah.
So I'm putting what we're going to do in writing. You're signing the commitment letter and you're paying a commitment fee What is the commitment fee? If the loan is $500,000 or more, it's $1,000. If it's $499.99 or less, it is $500. That's the only thing we charge up front. So the commitment letter is presented via DocuSign. You put in a credit card info at the end, all secure, and pay the commitment fee, and then we get to work. What does that mean? We're now literally going to our investors. We're setting the capital aside to do your deal. The minute we do that, we want to close as soon as possible because I'm getting charged interest every day I'm waiting, and I'm not collecting interest from you. So that actually hurts me. So I have every incentive to move at lightning speed to get the deal done. We engage counsel. We engage a title company. Obviously, you guys know if you're doing like a wholesale deal, 9 times out of 10, you got to use whoever the wholesaler is telling you need to use.
Yep.
We have relationships with every one of those title companies. There's a handful of title companies we will not work with in the region, less than a handful, probably 3 right now, mainly just because they suck and they don't know what they're doing, and their title insurance isn't worth anything. But we don't need to get into that. So we're engaging counsel, engaging title. Counsel is going to review what title does. So they're going to generate a title commitment, clear title, generate a commitment. Our attorney is going to review it. They're going to draft loan documents after reviewing your entity formation documents, assuming you're buying in the name of an entity, which most of you probably will be or are.
Yeah.
We've already done that internally. So if we find something that's missing, usually we're trying to tell you before it even gets to that phase. But come together for a closing date. The only other thing you're required to do is get hazard insurance put in place, before the date of settlement. That can be collected on the HUD, or you can pay it up front for the year. It doesn't really matter. We have some very, very sophisticated clients who have like master policies, maybe with like Erie. And those are like, it's a master policy that gives them, max liability and dwelling coverage, and they could swap properties in and move properties back out. So, that maybe doesn't have to be paid up front for a year because generally people are kind of paying that on a monthly basis. But that's really it. As far as the fees that we collect at settlement, we charge a $39 credit report fee. If you have, and that's per guarantor. So if it's a LLC with multiple members, everyone's getting that. If you have a credit report, and again, this is different with us. If you have a credit report that's within 60 days and it's tri-merged, I'm happy to use it. I don't need to pull your credit again. And you'd be surprised how many people do, where they have access to it. $41 wire fee. That generally changes annually, although it's been at $41 for 3 years now. So commitment fee, credit, wire. The attorney will generally charge somewhere between $900 and $1,000 per deal. If it's a very, very complex deal, it could be more than that, meaning, I don't know, crazy construction schedule and multi-level LLC, meaning like an LLC that's owned by another LLC. So then you got to verify 2, entities. Things like that could affect pricing. Rush job. We get deals. I got a deal today that has to close on Monday. We got it this morning. So, I now have to engage an attorney to work over the weekend at some point. They're going to charge for that, right? They're going to charge probably an extra couple $100. So those are out of my control, but attorney's fee, like I said, usually $900 to $1,000, a little more at times, but generally it usually comes in right at $1,000. Site inspector. Again, if we have to get a site inspection, which for first-time clients we normally do, I don't know, it's ranging right now usually from $245 to $275, depending on where the property is and how much time the inspector's got to get there to look at it. That's really it. The only other thing I can think of is occasionally we will collect a 3-month county tax reserve, as many as 6 months if the borrower's got like poor credit. But all that is you're literally contributing money at closing toward county taxes. That's just a reserve held with us, and then it gets refunded to you at payoff. So, say we were holding, I don't know, $1,000 towards county taxes and your loan was $100,000, at payoff, you would only owe 99. So it gets refunded to you literally when you sell the property. Usually once you're a client, you've shown that you're, responsible and can pay your taxes and your HOA fees and whatnot. It usually gets waived pretty quickly. It's more or less just first deal or two that we usually collected on people. And yeah, that's it. I mean, there's no processing fee or, whatever BS fee that gets built into it. It's literally our actual expenses. The only profit we make are the points that we charge, which nobody's actually asked me what we charge yet. So I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. We got two other hands. We got Stanley was first. So Stanley, go ahead and come on and ask your question, dude.
Okay, I got a couple questions. How many active loans do you allow per entity?
Never had a restriction on it, Stanley.
Okay.
My
do you
top
have any limit?
My top clients, I think you were saying limit on capital, right? Or limit amount per loan or anything?
Well, that was another one of my questions. I didn't get to yet.
Okay.
But I just want to know how many loans you allow per entity.
Yeah. To answer both of your questions, there's no limit on anything. One of my top clients is a female. She only does deals in Great Falls Church, and McLean, and I just closed the 7th active loan with her, and it was 800,000, and she already had about 5 million out. So,
okay,
no limit.
Okay. Do you have any limits on adding square footage? Because some lenders don't want to pay for adding square footage.
That gets in when you're doing the, especially when you're selling the notes to, have it conform with other people's underwriting guidelines. No, we don't. If the deal.
Okay.
Deal makes sense, that's not going to affect anything.
Okay. Do you fund new construction? Hard costs and soft costs?
The short answer is no.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. And do we know how, and will we occasionally do it? Yes, but it's not something I advertise, and it's definitely a once we get to know you thing. It's not a, I'm going to do it with somebody right off the bat.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay. Damien had a few.
The site survey fee, is that each time you come out $240?
No. The it's a site. Let's back up for a second. It's not a survey. It's an inspection of the property, and it's a very, very cursory inspection of the property. I'll tell you exactly what we're looking for. Especially years ago when realtors were trying to pull one over on banks, they were lying left and right on how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms were in a property, whether or not they were legal bedrooms. So we are literally, number one, looking to make sure the property is actually there. You'd be surprised. So standing and in, reasonably good shape, no major structural issues, foundation issues that, maybe the borrower missed or was potentially trying to hide from us. We're looking for square footage. We're looking for bedrooms and bathrooms, making sure the counts are all right. We are not going in checking a geo to make sure it's operating correctly. Okay, that's full-blown home inspection. So this is a very cursory overview of the property. And the most important aspect of it is we are checking your presented renovation budget, your scope of work, what you said you're going to do to this property and how much it's going to cost to what our highly trained inspectors think it's going to cost. So we get somebody who says, I'm going in and renovating this house. I'm doing the kitchen, I'm doing 3 bathrooms, I'm swapping out some flooring and a couple windows, and it's going to cost me $35,000. And we get there, and the house is destroyed, and we know it's going to cost $70,000. We got an issue, and we need to figure out where that money is going to come from, because there's obviously a massive discrepancy. A lot of our clients are contractors, and they can get shit done a lot cheaper than I can get it done. So we have to take that into account, right? If a deal goes bad, I don't want to be upside down on a property, period. I just don't have the time for it, and I just don't want to be flipping your property. So we're trying to dot those I's and cross those T's before we even make the loan. And that's kind of that's really the pre-analysis stage to the commitment stage that I was talking about. We want all that worked out before we actually close on the loan, because we want to make sure there's enough money to actually renovate the property.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what your question was. Sorry, what was the question? Did I answer it?
Yeah. It was
Yeah, about the site. But I have another question as well. The commitment fee, is that non-refundable?
Yeah, no, it's not refundable. I mean, you're not paying the commitment fee and you're not signing the letter until you're ready to rock. The minute you sign it, I'm not kidding. Literally, like within 5 minutes, I'm pulling those funds and putting them in reserve to do your deal. So yeah, no, it's non-refundable. It's a cost that we incur. And honestly, if it's not enough money to cover the cost. I mean, if you ever pull out of a deal after a commitment is signed, I'm generally taking it on the chin, because I've already engaged an attorney that I'm going to have to pay, and I'm engaging a title company. And if they're a title company that's not being pleasant, they're going to ask me to pay for their abstractor and any work that they've done processing the file to date. And that far surpasses the $500.
What
So,
if
yeah,
it's not? What if it's
Go
not?
ahead.
What if it's not your issue as to why the deal isn't happening? So, like for instance, you just made the comment about sending a site guy out, and you might have said that it was $20,000 worth of work, but the site guy finds 70.
It's a good question. I could tell you in 12 years of doing this with this company, we've never not been able to get a deal done.
Okay.
So we will do our best to figure out a solution, meaning, maybe we're increasing then our construction reserve for you to use, or maybe you're coming up with a little more capital up front. We're giving you a little more on the back end, but the discrepancy has never been big enough that we couldn't do the deal. If it is, I would say what we've done in the past is taken that commitment fee and applied it to the next deal. We've done that more than once. And listen, truth be told, I mean, we've never gone after anyone for pulling out of a deal after they've said they're going to do the deal. I mean, legally, we probably, I know we could. I mean, it's in writing. The borrower is committing to close and pay, for all these third-party fees and pay the points that they're being assessed, and we could go after them. But I mean, all I have are 5-star reviews on Google and Facebook. I don't want a 4-star review, let alone a 1-star review. So, I mean, I'm not in the business of nickeling and diming people.
Nice.
We have a guy on our team who probably had an $80,000 renovation. He did it for like $20,000.
You say that again? 8,000, and did it for what?
No, it was probably about an 80. The work that was needed was probably around $70,000-$80,000, and he did it for 20. What was that house Miguel did for like 20,000, 25, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to get to know him. Who is he?
He's a contractor. Okay. We have one more question. John, go ahead and unmute yourself again.
I got a question too.
Okay. Just raise your hand on the thing.
So I know we went over the fees. So now about the interest and points.
Mm-hmm. So right now, all right. So here, I'll just give you guys a little bit of a background. Since COVID hit, right, supply and demand have literally done a complete 180. And what I mean by that is there's more demand right now for what we do and the capital that we deliver than there is supply of capital. Okay, there's not a whole lot of lenders that are lending like they were. The folks that were buying notes are not buying notes like they were, and they're certainly not at the same crazy terms they were, back in February. And they were, in my opinion, getting borderline nuts. The LTVs were insane. The whole thing was just crazy. It's actually now kind of gotten back to reality. So with that being said, it is very tough for me to get a deal done for less than 2 points right now. It's usually pricing out If it's a normal deal, strong credit, reasonable experience client, good enough equity. In other words, we're happy with where we are loan to value ratio wise. It's usually pricing out between 2 and 2.5 points, and roughly 10 to 11% interest. If it is a riskier deal, it could be as high as 3 or 4 points, and it could be as high as 12% interest. Again, it's only on the money that has been released to you. It's not Dutch interest like I described very early on in this conversation. So it's a big difference. The equivalent of a 10% rate with us is a lot different than even 8.5% rate with Dutch interest. So just be mindful of what you're actually getting.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look that up. Kind of like the difference between amortized debt and lines of credit. Simple interest. So
I was thinking about.
But I don't know what Dutch interest is. I know amortized interest. I know simple interest. And
well, the deals that you've done, you said you funded some with WCP and they sold them, right?
Yeah, and they gave me like 8.5% interest with like 1 point.
Yeah. And did you ever look what you were paying the interest on?
It was daily interest. So I got charged. It was like $63 or something like that of interest every day that I held the loan.
Yeah, and I guarantee, were you getting your payment, your services from a company called FCI out of California?
I can't remember, to be honest with
you. I'm fairly certain they're charging you on, number one, did you have a construction reserve built into the loan? I'm just presuming you did.
Yeah, we did that's like your number 3. It was like a construction draws.
Yeah, so they're charging you, again, I'm about 99% certain that they were charging you on the entire balance at 8.5%. That's what Peer Street and WCP do all the time.
So yeah, no, it was really insightful to learn about that just now. Well, a quick question I had was, with your rental loans, you may or may not know this, but there's usually like a minimum loan amount. Do you guys have a minimum loan amount?
Yeah, it's I believe it's 75,000, and the property has to be worth 100,000 or more.
Okay, figured I'd ask. And then Mikey had a question. Want to come out, Mikey? I know you don't know how to raise your hand, maybe.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian. Just going over the 3 options. Which one do you recommend for new people getting into real estate? I mean, acquisition only, is that kind of better deal for newbies, or what do you recommend? That was my first question. And my second question is, I know nobody knows the market, but what do you see the real estate is going to be in 2021? Just your opinion.
All right, you might have to remind me of the second question because I've been drinking on a boat all day. But
okay.
Starting with the first one, this is kind of in the get to know you conversations we have very early on with a new client, right? So if you're very, very well capitalized and you're confident in your contractor, or at least the relationship you have with your contractor, the cheapest loan is always going to be just to get acquisition only, right? Because number one, the loan amount is going to be less. You're not paying points on renovation money or construction money. 2, you're not paying for construction draws if and when you need them. So it's a smaller loan, less interest, less points, less renovation. No brainer, it's the cheapest. But to answer your question, in my opinion, it really depends on where you are in the world of real estate investing. If you're just getting started and you don't have a whole lot of confidence, and maybe you don't have a network of people behind you to help, I actually think it's very beneficial to have a lender such as us helping with reviewing the renovation process, sending a site inspector to go look at the contractor's work, verify things are done. It's a hard question to answer because I've got clients who, work for Microsoft and make $800,000 a year and flip properties as a side gig, and they're obviously have a ton of capital and very, very busy, and hard for them to get to job sites and look over a contractor's shoulder, right? So they don't mind doing the construction draws. They'd actually rather us help them out with that process. But I've got super wealthy clients who only want help with the acquisition, and they want to put 50% down. They're buying a house for $800,000. I just literally on the last day of last month. This was in literally right next to where HQ2 is going for Amazon in Crystal City. A guy bought a home for I think it was 938 or 948. I can't remember. And he put down like $400,000. I mean, it's a no-brainer loan, obviously. And he didn't want any help with renovation. He was doing it all on his own. So, and he was a first-time client. He had, high credit and obviously capital behind him. So it's a tough question to answer, but it's more, if I sit down with you or talk on the phone, or one of our guys do, that's kind of where we get to know you a little bit and really think. At that point, we're going to tell you exactly what we think you should do, and help you through that process.
Thank you.
Oh, second question. 2021, you said? What do I think?
Yes. Yeah, real estate. Why?
So, that's a good question. Let me put it this way. I've stopped buying rentals right now. I have a lot of rentals, and I really wanted to get to 100, but I stopped buying about 3 years ago, and I stopped because I wasn't finding great deals anymore, and the competition to get a property for a reasonable cost to me wasn't worth my time. That being said, a lot of people have made a lot of money over the last 3 years, and I think this market is very stable. There's a reason that I, started a multi-million-dollar, lending company, and actually now have 2 lending companies, because I love this market. I think it's a very, very stable, solid workforce. Amazon coming here is certainly not going to hurt, and I'm not terribly worried about anything, especially with mortgage rates where they are. As far as inflation goes and everything, we've been talking about inflation for 4 or 5 years now, and obviously we haven't seen any. So, I don't know. It's really technical, but with all the money obviously that's being pumped into the economy from the feds, we could be dealing with significant inflation issues later on down the road. But honestly, I don't see that affecting the value of the underlying real estate in this particular market. What I am concerned with is the mass exodus from metropolitans across the country, including Washington, D.C. So, 5 years ago, we were doing condo conversions all day long, and I'm not seeing a lot of applications for them right now. And I'm funding even less, because, who's going to buy that little condo in DC when everyone's trying to get the hell out and get out to the suburbs, I mean, I don't know if you've seen what's gone on in New York, but I mean, prices on Long Island have skyrocketed.
Yep.
So, as far as, Northern Virginia, around the Beltway, I'm really comfortable with this whole area.
Awesome. I got a question, and I don't know, you don't have to answer this, but I'm just curious. As far as your lending business and you raising the capital to then deploy out to people like us, is it like a PPM, or are you guys doing a hedge fund? Or are you like an LLC partnership? Or are you just like a Reg D fund? How does your company actually acquire the capital from your either accredited or non-accredited investors, or both, and then deploy it out into the marketplace? Again,
So I mean, cursory overview, I guess. I started investing in secured notes when I was 13 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So the guy that I started investing with, I'm Jewish. So you have this thing called a bar mitzvah, and you make a little chunk of change when you're 13, right? Not a lot. It's like $10,000, but for a 13-year-old, it's a shit ton of money. So I initially put it all in a savings account, and my dad said, "No, let me show you what I'm doing." And he was investing in secured notes, essentially. He was doing it through a hard money lender, obviously. So I started very young. I obviously didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I knew I was getting a higher return. Long story short, when I was, 24-ish, that guy that I was lending my money to became a business partner of mine. And at that point, he had 3 companies. I mean, the third company alone was a $250 million company, lending company. So he didn't need to start another company with me, but he kind of did, and took me under his wing. And long story short, we built that to about 30 million within a couple of years. This was like 2005-ish.
Yeah.
We brought in a lot of investors to that, and it was really through loan participation and security agreements back then. But what ended up happening was we got to the size that, you know, the SEC was starting to get involved, and it formalized it into really a PPM, you know, private placement memorandum, and had people investing, you know, after filling out an accredited, investor questionnaire type thing. So, I mean, really all of our investors are either high net worth or fairly sophisticated investors, and we're giving them just a straight return on their money. So that's why when the money is pulled, I am actually paying interest on the money. The minute that it's pulled, which is, you know, I like it because it makes me work, you know, fast, and it makes the company incredibly efficient, and the borrowers like it because they're closing the deals faster versus, you know, somebody who's got to go through underwriting hoops, get an appraisal, and then make sure the loan's going to pass muster for the note buyer at a later point in time.
No, thank you so much. That's kind of what I was looking for from an answer. So I appreciate it. Damien, you got a question? And I don't know how much time you got, Brian, but we
I just want to get in the pool. I'm waiting. Family's in the pool waiting for me. So.
All right. Well,
sorry about that.
Damien, ask your question, and then we'll go ahead and end it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I had 2 questions. One was, do you always have to pull personal credit? And while you answer that one, I'll try to think of my second question.
So it's a good question. Do we always have to? We need to know who we're lending to.
Like, give me a soft pull, Brian. Sorry to cut you off, but you know, some companies show like the Experian, the Equifax, and the TransUnion, maybe even the FICOs from a paid thing. Like, can you?
That's all I need. It just has to be tri-merged to start. If it's a reasonable score, I don't need to do a hard pull. It's a good question. If it's, you know, kind of an in-between score, I probably want to see a tri-merged full-on report with, you know, trade lines on it. But I'll be completely honest with you, once we pull your credit, we're never again. Once you're a client, you've proven yourself on your first deal, we're assuming you're going to do the same on your second deal. So I've got, you know, folks, I'm not kidding, I started lending to in 2006, and I have not pulled their credit since. It's that very first deal, and that's because it's an in-house product. If we're using, something out of Virginia, Maryland, DC, or it's a rental product, whole different ballgame. That's 100% tri-merge report. Every full-blown report, hard pull, and there's no way around that. But again, if you've got anything really within 60 days, I will happily look at it. And we want to know. Listen, I'm not even afraid of credit scores, right? If somebody's got a crap credit score, that's fine. I just need to know why, right? If you went through a medical hardship or, I don't know, divorce or whatever it might be, that's okay. I get that. Stuff happens. But if I look on somebody's report and literally every trade line is junk, I don't want to make that loan, right? I don't want to be dealing with the heartache. And I don't want to have to make the monthly phone call. So it's really a question of what's on there, why is it on there? You know, is there a way we can improve it? And generally speaking, you know, I don't want to get too in depth here, but there are a lot of quick ways to get your score boosted a little bit, which, you know, you guys I'm sure can figure out and talk about yourself. But that's
we got a good thing going on with our group, so we get free credit repair and things like that. But I'd asked because I'm going through a process. I'm actually buying a house, and I'm still looking for investments, but I'm buying a personal residence as well. So I didn't want to, before I go to closing, didn't want to have my credit pulled to affect, you know, before I go to closing on my current property.
Yeah. Lenders are nuts. Banks are nuts. So what I would tell you there is you know, get your primary locked and loaded first, and you know, really to the point where you're signing docs before you probably have anyone else pull your credit. Because I know you're gonna have to send in like a letter of explanation as to why and everything at the last second with an underwriter, and it's a pain in the butt. You don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. My second question was the appraisal. Who pays for that?
Well, again, we don't require appraisals for our in-house products.
Oh.
If it's something where we're selling the note or it's a rental note, you're paying for the appraisal. I mean,
Gotcha.
I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay for it, right? So, yeah, it would be charged up front, or you would just put a credit card in right on the appraiser's, I don't know, payment system or whatever. But for all of our in-house products, we don't require appraisals unless for some reason we can't figure out what the heck the property is going to be worth. But you know, again, completely frank and honest, we don't even trust appraisers. So I would rather. I've got 2 guys who pull comps for me all day long, and it's not even just pulling comps, right? It's so much more than that. Like we want to look at a property from Google Maps and see if there's a power plant right next to it, or a dump across the street, or massive power lines going across the back, which could potentially negatively affect your after repair value. Appraisers don't do that stuff. They're literally going in and looking at what the property looks like, taking some pictures, and pulling whatever comps work for whatever it is they're trying to accomplish for the lender. A complete opposite of us. I don't even trust appraisers. So.
All right. Hey, Brian, how can people get in touch with you other than your website, restorationcapital.com, just to maybe for deals that they have to go through the process, etc.?
So I'll give you my email to start. My email is Castell. It's my last name. So CASTEL at restorationcapital.com. Our 800 number is 800-877-0883. And I would also tell people, if you want the absolute quickest response, generally I would just use loans, LOANS, loans at restorationcapital.com, because that'll go directly to me and, the people who are kind of get things going, get the file into pre-analysis stage the quickest. I give out my cell phone all the time. I don't, it's kind of to the point where I can't keep up with it anymore. So it's not hard to find my cell phone if you need it, but start with those 3 things: the 800 number, my email, or the loans at restorationcapital.com, and that's quickest way. The website is pretty user friendly. We've spent quite a bit of money getting it to where it is. It's still some tweaks to be worked out of the application, but you can certainly apply online too. But the main thing is just to have those things in order that I talked about. Be ready to talk about your experience, figure out the equity in the deal, your exit strategy, your plan, scope, budget, pictures, comps if you've got them, and that's all you really need to get started.
All right.
One last question.
Oh, one last question. Go for it.
So again, I'd like to ask a more personal question. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, he likes being on a
He
boat.
like to get in that pool with his family.
Well, I'll be very honest with you. This is the first time I've done what I'm doing right now in probably 6 years.
Wow.
I really don't even do this anymore. So I don't know why I said yes to do it, but I don't know. I was on a boat all day today. I'm like, I'm going to be in a good mood. I might as well do it afterwards. But spare time, normally I like to travel a lot. The beautiful thing about this business is I can, work from anywhere in the world, and I do it quite often. Last year I spent a lot of time in Europe. I was planning on going back, actually. I was supposed to be in Europe right now. I just recently have gotten kind of back into boating, mainly because of COVID, because everything else got canceled and I needed to do something with the family. Other than that, I mean, golf occasionally and cycle. I just got my knee replaced last year at the tender age of 40. So I'm trying to get back out there and rebuild the body I had in my 20s, which is not easy, but it's happening slowly. That's it though, really. Not a whole lot. I work my butt off.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
All right, guys, it's 7:36. We're gonna end the call. I hope this has been informative and you guys learned something. Brian, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I want to, do some business, and so once we do find a deal, you'll be the first person that I give a call. We're looking, but like you said, it's been tough.
Yeah, no, it's been very tough. I know it. You preaching to the choir. I totally get it. It's not an easy time. Not a whole lot of inventory and a lot of competition. And these damn wholesalers, they're gobbling everything up.
Yeah, they're ridiculous, but we're finding our own deals and we're looking things up, and so we're excited about doing something coming up.
Yeah,
Last one.
exploit a
Last
niche.
question.
Exploit a niche. That's what I say. Go ahead.
One
Last-
last question, Brian, to you. I know capital is very expensive. So what will differentiate you from a credit union or community bank? Because your capital is expensive compared to like these small banks. And what will differentiate you? What will compel us to go to you versus like the small banks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. 100%. We're more expensive without a doubt, and we're not. They're really completely two different products. There's a few community banks I think in this area that will lend. We're lending. I don't even know if they still are, like to fix and flip folks. Generally speaking, they're providing a line of credit to very well capitalized clients with exceptional credit and exceptional bank history. There are very, very few credit unions or banks who will actually lend though for a genuine fix and flip, right? Property really has to be in move-in condition, has to appraise, you have to have access to the property. With us, it's the complete opposite, right? We don't necessarily need to have access. We do deals for auction.com purchases all the time, trustee sales all the time, distressed assets where we can't get access to the property all the time. So to answer your question, access to the property, not needed. Appraisal, not needed. You have to close the deal in a matter of days. Good luck getting that done anywhere but, pretty much us. Most of our competitors can't even do that. So, it's a timing game. Also, generally speaking, if you do get, a conventional loan done for a fix and flip, and you're then paying off that loan in 5 or 6 months, your social security number before too long is going to get red flagged, and you're going to have a hard time getting any loans. Banks do not like that. They get pretty annoyed with it. I mean, when they're doing a 30-year fix, they're, packaging that paper, they're bundling that paper, they're selling that paper to Wall Street, and they're expecting those loans to stay out for, on average, like 5.5 to 7 years. So it's really tough to do what you're talking about. That being said, I mean, I have dozens of clients who have, $500,000, $1 million lines with local banks. But that's, because they're very, very well heeled and have the experience and the credit, and they deserve them. And, to some degree, they can be unrestricted even at times. So, I hope that answers the question, but it's people, backing up even for a second, people, they say 10% interest, 12%. How can you get away charging that? You got to keep in mind, it is simple interest. It's only on the money that's extended to you for the duration it's extended. There's no prepayment penalties. There's no minimum interest earned. I'm not saying, hey, you've got to keep this loan out for a minimum of 6 months. If you're paying the loan off in 2 months, I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't bother us at all. So it's kind of the working, it's capital that's working for you, and you have to look at it from that perspective. Are you leveraging my money and making more money with it? And if you are, I mean, your return should be infinite, right? I mean, if you're doing it right, you should have minimal of your own cash tied up, and you should be able to go out and leverage and do volume. So, I mean,
It's like learning how to, basically like learning how to rent that money to go out and create a profit.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. So I will, people laugh at me when I say this, and I don't say it often because again, I really don't do these things often, but I have created, I shouldn't say my company has created, I stopped counting, dozens of millionaires using our capital, and not one of them doesn't still come back to us and use our capital. There's a reason for that. They understand the power of other people's money. So, and I mean, hell, right now, the past, when things slowed down back in March, I got back into the stock market. I started playing around with stocks. It's all about keeping your capital working for you at all times, and leveraging out and using other people's money to create more wealth. That's all.
I love that. Let's end it right there. Hold that thought, guys.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Brian. Enjoy the rest of the day with your family.
No problem, guys. Take care. Have a good one. Good talking to you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, team. I'll see you guys next Friday. We got a lot more planned, so make sure to keep showing up. If you want to switch the day because Fridays are tough for you, let me know. Actually, next Friday, everyone, before you go, we're having Bill Omi. So if you haven't registered for Bill Omi, he's going to be talking all about raising private capital to get cheaper money than what we talked about today. So if you're not registered for Bill, register now. Register in Helios, and then we're going to resume our Friday night masterminds right after that.
Yeah,
Cool.
great.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Great information. Thank you.
Good stuff. Build your businesses. Happy Friday.